And we
Hey,
are live, hey,
we're live and alive in this internet space,
in this internet location that is nondescript and in the cloud and everywhere.
everywhere and all at once.
Mm-hmm.
How are you? Sipping some coffee?
Sipping some coffee. Yeah, doing well. It's a nice day. It's about 1 p.m. It's a great time.
It's a great time.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Now is always a great time. Um, I'm good. It's, it's 3:17
That's a
exactly
great
right
time.
now. That's a great time.
That's a great
I
time.
agree.
Yeah.
Um, and we're here, so that's great too.
Yeah.
Because we're both here. Even though you're there and I'm here, it's like we're here.
Yeah, it's a
So
strange internet location that we can beam into. And
we beam into.
yeah, we
Nice.
beam.
Nice.
Hashtag beam. Hashtag beam live.
My microphone is way too far. It's
That's
all good.
okay.
Can you hear me?
The further away the microphone, the louder you have to speak.
I
That's
have to
science.
practice my dictation. No, what is it? My what's the skill you use as an actor? My projection.
Projection. Yeah, you got to use
Yeah.
that diaphragm. You got to
Exactly.
make sure those people
It's
in the
good
back
practice.
row know what you're saying. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
Without trying to mess up your authentic distance.
Who's the people in the back door in the back row right now? Do
Um.
am I not reaching enough?
No, we're both reaching. We don't need to
We're
worry about
both
that.
front
We can
row.
whisper. We can whisper. We could
Both
we
front
could do
row.
this entire podcast ASMR.
No, I'm not down for that.
Welcome to the spoken.
Yes. Okay. This is beautiful.
I just want you to relax and
No, no, no. Dude, I have earphones on.
I know. You've seen those videos though, right? They're terrifying. They're a
I know
terrifying
it's a thing. I
phenomenon.
haven't checked them out. No, I
Millions
don't.
of millions of views, just like crinkling paper,
Oh my God.
drinking
Yeah.
water, speaking very softly. Um, we don't have to go into this, but I brought up before the end of the last episode. I wanted
Yeah.
as a subject that I thought could be interesting is discussing the internet as like a one being
Mm-hmm.
and sort of imagining the internet as
So
a
ASMR is like a
complex.
phase. It's just a phase of the internet.
It's a phase, but it's also like you could say it's a sub-personality of the internet's ego, or as an individual, it's like a part of that individual. Um, it's
I
like
think doing that will just be the same as talking about the collective consciousness, for example. That's
No, because I think it's
that'll
way
be like a
different. I think it's
synonym,
way
like a
different.
synonym.
No, I totally disagree because, uh, just the example of discourse and the way people talk online and then through the internet. And then, people will say like, I'm stuck on Twitter and it seems like everyone's divided and fighting each other and it's crazy. But then in real life, everything's cool. Everybody I see, it's fine. Everything, it's like, and that's, it's pretty true, man. You
Pretty,
don't walk around the street and people aren't just
yeah,
yelling at everyone
right. Well,
and making judgments and
of
all that
course.
stuff. But it's like, so the internet
Well, the
creature.
end of the most recent MMA fight was pretty crazy.
Oh yeah,
That ending.
the McGregor Khabib.
Exactly.
Brawl.
Right. The brawl. Nice. That's right. That was pretty insane. And that was like the internet. That was that's exactly the internet after any event.
Well, we
Like
could say that the internet for some reason taps into like very primordial us versus them. I guess more like amygdala type. Like if that's the thesis, if the thesis is that if the claim is that the way people communicate and act online is similar to that phenomena of the brawl after the fight, just a heated
mhm.
us versus them group mentality, reactionary thinking, not slow long
Yes.
discussions.
Reactive, mostly
Right.
reactive and
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. Like the internet is not the same as collective consciousness. I think for in my mind, collective consciousness, and we've talked about this before, is like this undescribable metaphysical substructure that somehow unites everyone, either literally or metaphorically, through genetics, common impulses, uh, sensory input, all that stuff. And however that occurs, I think that's in my mind, that's the whole ballpark of talking about collective consciousness, which I love to do. That's not the internet being that we're creating of like this. Um, and
hmm,
people could say, hey, Ian, you're being crazy. That's the internet. It has nothing to do with real life. It doesn't matter what's created there. It's like, well, maybe, but that's what Siri is learning from. That's what all of these
right.
artificial intelligences, that's what they're learning is human interaction.
Hmm.
They're not learning from conversations on the street. They're learning from analyzing all of Twitter's data, all of YouTube's data, all of those comments. Like, that's what they think a human mind, that's what we're using to represent a human mind. And maybe the brain scan technology of like actually mimicking a mind, whatever that stuff is, the neural link. I saw something, Elon Musk said something that he was, I don't know if that's real, but Kurzweil's been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah.
Until then, this is what we're creating, something that is going to be the basis of uh, what all of these artificial intelligences consider to be the human mind. And it's going to be
Well,
more,
but
and
you're
it's going to be
referring
more.
to the chaotic internet that you perceive as the chaotic internet.
Man, that's
Like we
way
have we're gonna build more organizations like the
okay,
Singularity Academy that are gonna
dude.
um, sort of regulate because there's gonna be a point where AI regulation is gonna be out of reach of regulation.
I see what you're
Like,
saying. If the runaway model is like correct, if it's going to just get out of hand, learn
but
new
what I perceive.
languages, improve
Mhm.
itself, that's what you mean there.
Sort of that, but in counterpoint to you saying that AI is mostly learning from the crazy internet.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe I'm wrong.
what
Maybe
maybe
it's not.
what I'm saying is it's both and. Like the crazy internet
Yeah.
is a part of that but the crazy internet is also just a revelation of the crazy mind we all have.
No,
Like
here's the thing. Here's the thing.
if you
And
don't recognize that in yourself, also, um, like there's something to learn from all the manifestations of craziness that go
yeah,
on in the internet. Because if we did that just in the street,
right.
because we used to do that, and then murder was everywhere. So we have civil laws and civil discourse or
Yeah,
interactions so that we don't get to the point where we want to kill each other because we don't
right.
agree. But in the internet, we don't have that. Like, if you insult someone's beliefs, it's just free speech most of the time. Like, except um, there's a lot of, I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna kill you, right? Like, What's that? It's
Inciting violence or threats, like actual
threats.
threats
Yeah,
to
actual
someone's
threats go on in
life
the
or violence.
and
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, the thing.
Mhm.
So here's I I have two thoughts. One of the thoughts is that's probably going to translate the way that people act with each other on social on online in what you're causing the crazy internet, and this is something that we could have a discussion on because I don't think it's crazy internet. I think it's 90% of what the internet causes. I don't think that
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
think I don't think it's a crazy faction of the internet that we're like that's just the crazy. It's representative of human
You're
consciousness.
right. I
Uh,
think you're right. I was expressing in terms of that's just a minority. Like
right. I
the
don't think
crazy
so.
interactions are.
I
You
don't
think
think so.
that's mainly around 90% of
Yeah.
internet conversations are super
Well, here's the
exaggerated
thing.
and reactive and
Yeah.
egocentric.
Yeah. And so the first thing that I wanted to say was I think that how people communicate with each other online will translate once it's like virtual reality or when people aren't physically like real physically embodied and confronting somebody, then there's this weird
Yeah,
separation where like
like it's almost
it's
anonymous.
it's anonymous, yeah. And even
Yeah. Mm.
in VR space, when people are like using different, what's it called, avatars, it's gonna be the same. People are just gonna be. I don't see how this trend of communicating online is gonna change if something in a situation like virtual reality. That going away, I would love to touch on this idea like and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like who are the type of people that continuously tweet and comment online? I think the majority of people who are doing that are people who like they're the outliers. They're the people who need to say something about it. They're super compelled to say something about this issue, which means they're usually heated about it, which means it's usually passionate, which means it's very intense. There's you don't have a lot of if it's Twitter, you don't have a lot of words to say it. Um,
Hmm.
and so like it's the thing where the loudest people get heard, and that's everyone's shouting. Like the internet is where everyone's trying to get heard, everyone's shouting, and it's
Hmm.
separated and anonymous. And there are pockets where things seem civil and good, but
But
I
those
mean,
would be the exceptions.
do you think so? Or maybe it's I don't know. Like, do you think that that's the case? It's really hard to. I mean, let's go through. Let's go through. So you so
Hmm.
if you said YouTube and then separated YouTube content with YouTube comments, I would say on the whole YouTube comments are the crazy part. Are the like 80% of YouTube comments, you wouldn't want that to be how people communicate in real life. What do you think about YouTube video content in general?
I'd say it's just a reflection of what people are thinking about.
But it's also
You-
influenced by people's need to get views and hits, so things are more pushed to the polarity, things are more extreme, things are more crazy, accidents are
Mhm.
more wild, statements are larger so that they can pull more views, a lot of headlines are more aggressive, clickbait titles.
But
Um,
also with all the algorithms these days, the internet is suited to feed
right,
your already
right. And mine's a
like every
mess at this point.
yeah, so it's almost like the eye sees what the mind is ready to see or what the mind wants to see. So whenever you're referencing any maybe not rational or out of line situation in the internet, you wanted to see that. Like you didn't come across that accidentally.
Right.
So that's also a reflection of your own subconscious patterns in the way that
Yeah.
you don't just accidentally run into anything in the internet. So
That's
it
true, but
depends on
I
what you search for and everyone around
yeah.
you and your location and what where you click even without knowing where it's gonna take you.
Yeah.
There's a reason behind that.
Like there's the feeling where if you read an article or you're on a page or a video, there's a part of you that's like, let's scroll down here and see what kind of chaos is going on in the
Mm,
comments. Like there's a part of you that's like, I want to see some shit. I want to see all the like idiots and the complainers and the arguers and just see how crazy it is down here. Which I think is reflective of two things. It's reflective of your personal, and this is what you're touching on. It's reflective of your personal whatever things inside of you that wants to see that, and you know that's also a part of the whole thing, and keep perpetuating it possibly.
hmm
But then there's a reason you have the expectation that shit's gonna be crazy down there because it usually is. So
Yeah,
there's that too,
yeah.
like the comments and Twitter threads and Reddit the thing about Reddit is usually it's people fucking around and making jokes, and I do find
I
that
think the voting system works
Reddit threads are a bit
great
better,
in
but
Reddit.
yeah. And
So
there
that's
are
also, yeah,
there are sub
the
communities that are
depends also on the system. I was gonna say this,
right.
the however the commenting software works, or the how you manage attention, how you manage what people sees. And in Reddit, you know what I think one of the great um, things they nailed is the voting system. And
It does
also,
work, yeah.
you know, the community, I think, in a great majority, really use that. Like you, if something is voted down, it's because there's a general consensus that that's not useful,
Mhm.
and I like that. I think that's great.
As
That
long
you,
as the like the viewers and the people who are in that community don't become an echo chamber, then
yeah,
like
hmm
you know there's tons of subreddits that you're like, oh, these guys are entirely this way and they're all gonna upvote or downvote these specific ideals or these types of comments. But I think that's really interesting in terms of trying to figure out, like I think something has to be done, in my mind something has to be done about how information is shared, expressed, prioritized online, because the way it seems to be growing, or the trend, uh, in my mind is way more crazy than it isn't. Uh, and yeah, I think you know voting is really helpful, but it's people also love that stuff. People love um, like people love the that style of communicating on Twitter as much as people are like, I'm so angry with this comment, I need to post my thoughts. As much as they're angered, they love it. Like cuz and I know
hmm
that cuz I recognize it in myself. Like you love getting angered and feeling righteous, or you there's something about sharing your opinion which is very satisfying, and that's what
the
Twitter's
drama
done.
that
It's
comes with
like
it.
yeah.
We love the contradictions and the heated arguments.
Yeah, we like fights. Yeah.
We love, yeah, we like fights.
Yeah.
Actually, I could back off from the statement of the voting system of Reddit being a
Mhm.
good thing. I'm not sure. Like, what if you translate that to like what China's doing? Like
Right.
I could vote you up or down in the in
Oh,
my
right.
social circle, right? Like,
Yeah, how they're giving, it's almost like that Black Mirror thing where each person
hmm
has like a rating.
rating system. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. That's
No.
crazy. And I think we do that already,
We do that already. Yeah.
but it's at least you can change that. At least it's not out there. It's not written on your forehead, right?
Hmm. Do you think that
So
do you think there's a difference because it's a
the
slippery slope?
huge difference,
It's a slippery slope.
because you have a new opportunity with uh, every person. But what happens if you, well, that works both ways, I guess. But if you move to another town, people start over. A lot of people start
Right.
over, right? But what if you're a bad person, right? And if you're really a bad person and if you
Yeah.
want to move from another town, people should know.
There's circumstances where
Should
I'm
know.
like, that makes sense, and I was gonna say it's a bit of a slippery slope because we see the validity or the importance of that in say like, or maybe we don't, maybe we disagree, but in like Yelp reviews or like business reviews or product reviews, I mean, a lot of the times they're skewed and people get paid to leave ratings and all
Mhm.
this stuff. But on the whole, that stuff is pretty helpful to get
That's
feedback from
true.
other people and to know, is this trustworthy? Is this not trustworthy? Why did I say it
I
like that?
agree.
Trustworthy. uh,
Well, that's a real thing.
yeah.
The trustworthiness of humans, and the competence of humans, and the ability to be responsible humans.
Yeah.
Uh, Responsible humans. It's like we're all humans, like responsible aliens.
Yeah, but
Um,
yeah, and then it's also what are the standards for the grading? You know what I mean? Like who decides what the grading's about?
yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah, and then it's like
That's the whole thing about morality and ethics and
yeah, that's a big thing.
religiousness, and it's a huge thing. Uh, but I do believe that overall it's a good thing that you can, I mean, if you meet someone in your own social circle, you meet someone new, you
Yeah.
start, you begin a relationship, even if it's friendly or romantic or whatever, you might ask your other friends about this person.
Yeah, that's
And,
true.
we share that information, and I think that's reputation. But the problem is what happens when your reputation hits bottom and you can't recover. Those
Yeah,
are
and I
lost
mean,
souls. And we should, even if generally the rating thing is a good thing and the review,
I don't know,
we,
yeah.
we should have a way to redeem low rating people,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe not, maybe, I don't know.
Well, I mean, the thing is like I don't know if I'd like that because something that uh I try to do is like with every person that I meet, it's like I don't want to come into that with any. It's
Mhm.
like watching a movie. It's like I don't want to come into this with any expectations or opinions or like because that gets reflected and
Yeah,
you get that those ideas get somehow subtly on your face and how you speak and then they are subconsciously reacting to that and then you might make what you think is truth happen because you might shape it
yeah,
into that and it's like something that I enjoy is taking each person as in like okay, this is my experience with this person and then it's like you just take it on a very
yeah. But there's also, no, I
no,
agree
but that's
100%.
not
But there's
no, no,
also
100%.
maybe 95, because there's also a story behind
Right.
someone new, right? If you're talking about movies,
And
there's
it
a reason
depends
why
on
you
the
wanted to see that movie in the first place. Even
yeah.
if you don't go watch the reviews, you don't want to spoil or anything, or you just really don't care about specific opinions. But you do know that it won this festival, maybe this actor is there, or this
Yeah.
director,
Maybe
or
check the
like
IMDb rating,
there's
which I do.
exactly, yeah. So you
Yeah.
kind of know if if it's a good movie
By
or
the
not.
way,
Like
IMDb
you
used to
read
be
that.
so much better. IMDb ratings used to be so much better like 8 years ago. Or maybe my tastes
I
have
think
changed, but I
Rotten
feel like
Tomatoes ratings are better. Like more,
you think they are?
they're more of high standard rating, I think. But sometimes
But
I
like,
don't know.
like
Same it's the same thing,
Black
I
Panther,
guess. And
Black
you
Panther
can
is 100%, and it's like say what you want about. I have no opinions about the movie itself, but it
that was a
that a
cultural
hundred
phenomena as
that
well.
yeah 100% didn't have to do with the movie itself. It had to do with
Yeah.
other stuff, but
But that's a
that
great thing
happens
about
anywhere.
movies, you know. It
Yeah,
could be completely emotional or
that's true.
cultural.
That's true. You could be, but people have different grading parameters, and that's what we were talking about before. Is like if we're grading
Yeah.
people, what are the parameters? And yeah, I kind of take back what I said. Like if someone told, like I think knowing somebody through people that you know or trust, if you hear something like that does mean something, 100%.
Yeah. But there's truth in the new opportunity as well.
There's truth in that.
Like people have mistakes and there's
Yeah.
healing, there's redemption, transformation, but you should never you should I don't know, this is something I've thought about for a long time and um I think it's different in a professional situation or a business work situation than in a personal space. In the personal space, I'm more inclined to, I trust you, my trust goes first, and it's up to you to either hold it or let it fall, right? But I'll put the 60% there or the
Mm-hmm.
90% there,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll have some caution, but I trust you. And if I see that you trust me, then I trust you even more because you trust people that trust you and
Yeah.
goes there. Um, but I really think most people go the other way where I don't trust you unless you earn the trust,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I have that mindset more of in like work situations, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
I've trusted someone delivering something and I was like, oh, it's sissy, it's gonna come up fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I fooled myself into this is gonna work out and I have to deliver the next day and I see the thing and it's completely wrong and I'm like, I shouldn't have
Right.
trusted this person in the first place.
Right.
But
Well,
that's a complete different thing.
no, because well, maybe, but that whole, I think what's interesting is like the more, like when you start interacting with people, on the most part, unless you've like, and maybe this is the benefit of stuff like ancient texts or like people who study Bhagavad Gita and stuff like that. It's like those say what you want about those narratives is they do show you a wide range of human potential of like what people can do. Like there's so many stories about like if you're young and you read something like that or you really are studying that, you have a pretty good sense about what some people are capable of in the world and that you might meet people like this that might be angels to you or beneficial to you or stab you in the back or all of this stuff. And I think that in general most people they grow up pretty naive and trustworthy on the most
Mhm.
part, I think. Like,
Yeah, it
kids
seems
like
like that's the natural thing to do. Like kids
yeah,
don't know evils, so they're
right.
not
And,
cautious of it. Yeah.
right, and then there's those moments where you personally experience malevolence and like somebody does something to you if it's in relationships or somebody you trusted somebody and uh
Mhm.
you know
So
in
you build a wall.
certain moments in my life you're like shocked, you're like
Yeah.
I didn't know people, like I've heard of certain things but I didn't know this was capable in this was a potential to happen in this situation because until that point nothing like that's happened, so you're comfortable, and then something like that happens, and then you're basically faced with
You're
two.
complete chaos like
Right.
this.
Right.
Hmm.
But then there's two options. One of the options is to basically be entirely non-trustworthy, because now you're super on the edge. You're like, this could be anyone. Or like
Right. I
anyone
think
could be
is
untrustworthy.
that a natural part of maturing or like
Yeah, I think
growing
so.
up or
I
like
think
being
so.
more wise? There's a
I
difference.
don't know about wise though. I think wise is learning how to be in the middle way where you can trust people, but you're also aware of signs, and you're also like not just super overly positive or optimistic, and you are
Mhm.
aware of, I don't know, navigating that
Because
space.
otherwise, you're just naive. If
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, the world, bring
Yeah.
it on. This is just,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful place to be in, and it has to do with innocence, but that goes with
Yeah.
naivety,
Yeah.
right? Like you
And
don't know yet what humans are capable of.
if you're fully naive,
Yeah.
you're that's terrifying. And that's what you learn when something happens
So
to you, because you're like, "Oh, I can't."
that, that's what I was referencing when I said maybe I went too far. But if you're reading some crazy YouTube comments,
Yeah.
um, and you're thinking, what? These people are crazy. Like, how come they think like this?
Yeah.
I think that means you have inner searching to do. Like, because if you can't see how people would write those things, if you can't
Yeah.
put your place that you can put yourself in those shoes that would say those things or do those
Yeah.
things that may be incredibly evil and incredibly out there, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
other. I see great potential there.
Totally. And I think
Which
that that's a great practice for any interaction with something that you have an immediate reaction to. It's like there's a lot to learn there. I mean, in my mind, I don't remember how, but I remember being young and like thinking about the road rage phenomenon, and
was that?
well, just road rage, just people getting angry on the
Oh,
street.
of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the like in
Okay.
their car, and they're like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
"Ah,
Yeah.
we're both getting somewhere, and now I'm 10 seconds out of my way,
That
and you too."
that's Mexico City traffic. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. But I remember thinking just like, I remember one time going like, what in their life could be going on where that reaction could be justified? Like not if they're doing it all the time,
Yes.
but this one day I'd be like, maybe they lost their job, or
But
some
have you
this
ever been
happened,
one
or
of
they
those
got.
guys? Well, I don't know if you. I know you don't drive often, or maybe at all. Like
No, I do. I do.
you do?
Yeah, I live that car share lifestyle.
Okay, nice, nice.
Yeah.
I've been one of those in a hurry,
100%. Yeah.
bad
I
mood,
think
people
everyone.
driving,
Yeah.
and yeah, it helps you kind of not get that mad when you see someone there road
Right.
raging, and helps to be like, well, they could have any story, right? They could
Hmm.
really have a high stakes story going on.
They could also just be miserable,
Of
and
course.
like they shouldn't do that. And I don't think it's. I
Right,
don't
I'm
think
not
anyone
justifying
should be
it.
road
True.
raging, but
Of course, yeah.
I just remember doing that and going like, oh, like everyone, you just have no idea where people are coming from to get to that spot. Like we live so, like we live such in a glass, in a cave. We live in such the fishbowl. Like all of us are in our own fishbowl, and we see, yeah,
But the road rager, he's your teacher. If you're in traffic, road rager kind of almost hits you. He
yeah,
wants to go there fast, and you have like, whoa, this guy, what are you doing? We're
yeah,
both here. Um, you have two choices. You either react to that or go like, hey, road rager, I understand you. Please go ahead. I don't need to go first. Please go first.
Is
I'll
that
go
possible
second.
though? Here's the thing. Here's the
I
thing.
think that's what you should do because
No,
if
I
you
agree. I
react and
agree.
you're like,
But
"No, road rager, I'm going first. You're wrong," then you just
no, no,
lower your
no.
vibration to that.
What usually happens is, at least for me and people I've seen,
Hmm.
is they will pretend like it doesn't phase them, and they'll like pretend that they're doing that, and maybe they are trying. Like I've done this before where I've tried to be like, hey, it's just go ahead. But however you do it, you can't let what they did not affect you, and it becomes this like
It's so
ironic
hard.
like stabbing, like
Yes, that's what I
little,
was
like
gonna
you
say
laugh,
too.
you'll be like, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah, you're
buddy.
judging anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
You're
I
like,
do the same.
go
It's so
ahead,
funny.
have a nice day.
Sometimes, yes, and sometimes you wave.
Yeah.
Dude, dude, I do like the illuminated Jesus sign. I go like this and just like bless them. I'm blessing them,
Yeah.
but it's also like,
Yeah.
well, fuck you, right?
Yeah,
It's also
exactly.
like,
There's always a fuck you in there. Even if you try to go fully just like
yeah.
it doesn't phase me because it's natural. Someone's like this energy is going towards you from somebody and
Hmm.
it has purpose and it's meant to do something and it's very hard to just be like to like knock it off and then cuz you have
But we're not saying it's impossible, right? Like you
I don't know.
can.
It might be impossible because
Maybe I'm fooling
it might
myself,
be
but I've been
impossible.
in that place where it's like it's graceful. It's not didn't even bounce. It's just like go ahead, bro. I'm here. I'm listening to my music.
Right.
I'm gonna be in home 30 minutes. It's okay.
But
I'll be there.
even that act, like even if you just kept listening to music and singing along, there's a part of you that's recognizing that you're not reacting and you're like patting yourself on the back and you're like this guy doesn't bother me or like that person doesn't bother me. I'm going to keep singing.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like
That
I
you're
don't
practicing that. You're practicing like the not to be disturbed sign.
right, but even that is
That
like
you
an act of rebellion, right?
It is. Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe the best act of rebellion because
Uh-huh.
it's like an invitation to be another road rager. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
one light
Totally.
will turn on another light.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's hard, but maybe that's the thing to do also.
I think so, but
Maybe that's the solution to road rage in general.
my thing is like it's a lose-lose for the receiver, I think, because no matter what you do, it will be perceived as annoying by the road rager and a part of you will see what you're doing as like really good or as an act of rebellion or you'll like sneak in a little fuck you or uh I think it's really
Right.
hard, yeah.
And you could insult the people in the other car. They don't even know you're insulting them. So that's almost like you're insulting yourself
Yeah.
because you're saying that negative low vibration word so that only you hear it.
Yeah.
Like there's no real
Yeah.
communication, so it's like you're saying that to yourself and putting
Yeah.
yourself in that state.
Yeah.
So it's like you fucked yourself because you were
Yeah.
like you took the invitation
Mhm.
to destroy your state.
Yeah.
So you beat
Mhm.
the I lose the
You
word.
beat the eggs.
Help me. You fall in the trap.
You beat the drums.
You bite the
Bullet.
carnage.
There's a
Uh,
reason Car is in Carnage.
but for example, bro, it's very rare in Mexico if there's an ambulance coming,
Yeah.
if it's a very busy street
Yeah.
and not a wide road, people won't find the way to just
Mm-hmm.
move and let the ambulance pass.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of videos that go on in the social, like side to side, how Japan reacts to an ambulance on the road, and then how Mexico reacts to an ambulance on the road. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, it's really all about education, like
Yeah.
how societies become
Cultural
like
norms and
behave different in
yeah.
those it's life death situations. Even if you don't know if there's a dying person in the ambulance, you
Yeah.
know it's you know you should react, and it's binary, right? It's not
Yeah.
like, hey, we're here, like, sorry, there's traffic. People find a way to move and make space in the
Mhm.
road.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's like
All of those
the I go first strategy.
Yeah, all of those situations are are very interesting. They're interesting phenomenons where a massive group of people in one place with like a stimulus will all collectively do something. It's like really interesting
I
to
love that.
see how um like if you're in a situation where two people are driving, they just had a road rage, they're angry at each other. If there was an
Mm.
ambulance, they'd both be like, oh, okay, and they'd pull to the side and they'd stop and they'd let the ambulance by in the middle of the like
Argument, yeah. Hmm.
and everybody will do it collectively at the same time. I've always been fascinated by, and maybe it's a slightly different situation, but I've always been
Crowd
situated.
celebrations.
No, but I know you are. Well, that's the same thing.
I love that, yeah.
Crosswalks. I just love crosswalks. I like how
Mm,
masses of people just align on either side and everyone's kind of just
yeah.
waiting and looking around, and then the lights will change, and then when they walk, like it goes like this and then people go like that, and somehow magically like everyone just works it out and everyone gets by each other. There's
The
no
zebra space. The zebra space is magical. It's
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. 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 It's crazy. It's like there's no rules. There are no like if you're coming from the right, you take the right step, and if you're coming from the left, you take the left step, and you.
Mhm.
It's like there's no rules. It just works. It just goes. Uh, and there might be.
It's like a social consensus that if you're
Yeah,
crossing a zebra, you're safe.
yeah,
I'm recalling an art installation that took place around 7 cities. Don't remember the name or the author of the organization, but that was the idea. I think it was like a golden square that they placed on like
Oh,
parks. And as long as you're in that inside the golden square, you're completely safe and in a love environment
dude,
or something like that.
that's from a movie called The
That's from a
Square,
movie. Yes, yes, that's
and
true.
they
Exactly.
make fun of that,
Thank you.
dude. They make
They
fun
do.
of
They make
that.
fun of that. That's yes. That's a great movie.
That
That's
movie is
true.
very weird. That movie is
Yes,
very
that's a
weird.
weird movie. The scene with the guy in the
Restaurant.
dinner.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
I thought that was a
I
great
remember that.
movie. Yeah.
That's true. That's a movie, not an art installation that took place, and then I kind of recall the.
Well, maybe
That's
they. I
true.
don't know if they did it for real, but yeah, that's.
But do you think they were making fun of that? And you know
I
the
think so. I think so.
the sacredness of the zebra
Yeah.
walk.
I don't think they were
That's a,
making
that's
fun
a
of the
real thing.
sacredness of the zebra walk. I think they were making fun of like art installations that are super
Oh, right.
minimal, and
Hmm.
then people making up like how profound it is, and then
Conceptual or ideological.
yeah, yeah.
Mm, of course. Like
But
Waiting for Godot. We talked
maybe.
about this.
Yeah, but yeah, the sacredness of the zebra space is really the crosswalk is it's
Zebras.
very cool. Yeah, I bet there's a much lower percentage of violence in the zebra space. I bet
And
it's much lower.
that has a lot to do with the internet thing we were talking about, where people feel free to or freer to speak their mind in an internet space
Yeah,
than in those kind of civil spaces where there's a general consensus of behavior,
yeah,
right?
Right,
But
and that's exactly, and that's my
but
point
that's
is
a good
that
thing we came to those sort of ways of behaving publicly, right?
right. So my thing is like the internet is new and we're setting the habits now. We're set and it's pretty already deeply ingrained what these public spaces mean, what the like I think we never conceptualized it as creating a new physical space. But it's like that. It's like the internet, we've created a new park that people can walk to this park, nobody has faces, and they can just say anything. And nowhere in that did we ever make like it's probably best that we don't have this behavior, and then people slowly approve like voted even everyone was like, yeah, this isn't helping, let's make some sort of rules about how to communicate with each other. We never did that, and now it's like the habits are there. The habits are there, and they're getting worse. And it's like it never forgets, and it's always going to be a large part of all of these internet spaces unless there's a massive collective shift in perspective on how to use the internet. But I don't think that's going to happen. It's like this new world is crazy, and the internet.
I think the one of the biggest contributors to regulating behavior in the internet are they called regulators, or like if you have a live chat, there's
moderators.
Moderators.
Yeah.
Moderators.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll come up with some kind of AI moderation, which is going to become sort of the internet law. That could happen.
Right. But the concern with like right now, Twitter, Facebook, they have their own moderators that are AI that search for keywords, and they have their own political bias. They have their own opinions.
The silencing.
Yeah, it has the same problems of the rating thing, where it's like, who's making the rules here?
So the main counterpoint is free speech, basically. Whenever you implement regulations on speech, the main thing is, are you hurting free speech?
Yeah, it's really weird. The whole thing is hard to conceptualize. It's like if there would be a way to embody real life, and like if you could conceptualize the metaphysical framework that we've all accepted socially, if you could somehow embody that and then get an AI to just do that and somehow make that seem like that's how we should act on the internet, then that'd be cool. But the likelihood that could happen is like
and
accurately,
if it happens, it'll be super tricky though, because it's all about who's making the decision to either censor or let someone be, and what principles is that decision being made upon.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it's like the thing is, because and maybe I'm wrong. Yeah,
judges mostly are very educated people, and they make pretty good choices generally. I think,
unless they're corrupt, which is obviously a small percentage of every people everywhere on any hierarchy. Yeah, but I agree. Yeah.
So who's choosing the moderator? Maybe that's the thing.
Yeah, and this discussion is the as above so below. This is the same discussion we have about our minds and the observer, and what moderator do you put in terms of governing the perspectives and approaches.
Why do we always end up linking or like making a similar approach to some topics and then come back to that? I think that's fascinating. I don't think we're making it. Maybe that's not the right words, but
I don't think we're forcing it, but I do enjoy that. Like I like trying to find commonalities because it makes it makes my ego feel comfortable, as if I'm finding rules to the massive game. Like as if I'm noticing trends that like transcend situations. It's like transcendent
So it's,
principles of how things of things in
do you
reality.
think that's a personal quality? You know, the inner importance of the why and
Yeah,
the tendency to analyze things in whatever you think is a profound level of analysis
right.
and trying to like go further in the meaning and reasons. And do you
Yeah.
think that's like a personal trait, or do you think and or do you believe if people don't have that as a personal trait or as a natural tendency, should people practice that? Should,
I don't think
should
so. I feel like it's probably, you know, my certain personality traits of mine and tons of other people will have the same personality trait, but I don't think that it should be prescribed or suggested for anyone. Just like, um,
but is that not the basis of any authentic conversation and the
maybe.
basis of like intellectual exploration? The
Um,
curiosity, the inner curiosity for the why, and it's also
yeah,
like a high stakes curiosity, like not easy
yeah.
to give up.
That main question is that one question though that we touched on is just like who makes the rules and who moderates, and that principle, that question is important, and it at any, I feel like that's an important thing on any level in any discipline,
Mhm.
uh, and that's a massive scientific question. If you talk about
Right,
the
that's
laws of
that's
physics, you're like, who made the rules and who's the moderator? It's like, yeah,
that sounds like a big part of the Peterson Harris conversation,
yeah, I think so. Who
and
makes
the
the rules and
details of
why?
that.
Yeah, I agree. But so here's a question. Here's a question. If physical space and talking to people in real life, um, if that is, we've had this space for millennia, and we've had religions and moral disciplines and stories and children's tales and ways of trying to get people to accept these metaphysical moral codes to live in the world civilly. And now we have the least violence, Steven Pinker, Better Angels of Our Nature, all that stuff. Like, violence is like lower than ever, and in general everyone is accepting these metaphysical rules of the game so that people can walk around on the street and all that stuff.
Hmm.
If we accept that, that's that. If we then accept that the internet, if we truly conceptualize the internet as a new location where habits and codes of conduct, and would you agree or disagree in this with the claim that it doesn't translate all of these methods and codes that weren't, or we're not allowing these adopted codes of behavior, we're not allowing them to translate into this new space? Or if the new space requires like um, a moment in time where we need to address it for people growing up and in different ways than can be approached by religious text, moral texts, rationalist discussion. Like we need a new. It's like you need a new course where people, when they're growing up, they're like, listen, when you're online, there's different amygdala activation. You're more likely to act in this way because of being anonymous. Like we need to figure out a way to
Mm.
codify the new
Yeah,
space and to, yeah,
but I think that way is offline, right?
right. Yeah, I agree.
Like
Well, yeah,
parents educating their children the right way. And I don't know what the right way is.
Yeah,
I'm just
what's the
saying
right
there's a
way?
right way, and parents should figure out what the right way is, try to implement the right way. And that thinking, what is the right way to educate my children or to educate myself, or what is the right way to behave, either offline or online?
Here's what you do.
Uh,
You invent a place called heaven, you invent a place called hell, and then you
Dude,
tell
I
everyone
know you were going to go there.
and then you
Is
tell
that the only? But then you're making the argument that the belief in heaven and
yeah.
hell, and Sam Harris would be
There's a
mocking
new
you, right?
there's a new Bible and it says if you uh
So,
if you tell someone they're an idiot or accuse people online anonymously without entering a longer discussion with them civilly, then you're going to go to hell forever. You're going to burn in hell forever.
maybe there should be an internet hell, which could be some
Internet
sort
hell.
of some sort of combination of blocking and silencing.
This is what happens. Your internet gets worse. The more you do that, you get
Like what
dial
happened
up. If you do that a lot, you
to
get
the
dial up.
journalist guy? What's his name? Jones? The angry journalist, over the top political guy who got
Oh,
silenced?
yeah, Alex Jones. Yeah.
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
That's sort of like the internet
InfoWars.
saying, "Hey, you're out of here," right? Is that like
I wouldn't say it was the internet saying you're out of here. It was Facebook, YouTube, Twitter at the same time saying we're gonna deplatform you and take you off of the internet. I don't think there ever was a vote of the internet of like everyone on the internet going, "Do we want
may
to
not
see this
have been
content or not?"
democratized?
All right.
Maybe it wasn't a democracy, but
It was.
still,
Yeah.
if the internet is mostly Facebook, Google, etc., then if it's sort of a
No, 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 no,
dictatorship
no.
and
Yeah.
they
The internet,
that's
but the problem is the internet isn't Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The internet are the people on those platforms. That's the
yeah,
internet.
of course.
And yeah,
But but it's like saying the country is the people, but then the government is also the people, right? The people chooses the the people in the government mainly, like at least where we live. It's
yeah, yeah.
supposedly
Right. I hear you. Yeah.
it's
Selected,
us.
not elected
Exactly.
is like,
Supposedly,
yeah. How
mainly.
much of that? Yeah.
And well, the owners of these big media internet companies are also civil people, and they're also part of the society, but they also in the higher part of the hierarchy. And that's for a reason. And the fact that they may have to the final word to either silence or not silence someone. I don't know if that's a good thing, but what I'm saying is there's a reason why they're in that position and not other people.
Yeah, but those reasons can't be assumed to be moral or good. Those reasons,
Right. Yeah, I'm not
like,
saying
yeah,
yeah. Still,
but
they make the choice,
hmm
and you can still access the internet. But if everyone is in Facebook and you can't access Facebook, then you're not really in the internet because everyone's using that platform. So that's a big
right.
like
Well,
we shouldn't have platform monopolies.
no,
Does that make sense?
100%. And that's people's. That's like the people who are arguing that, Jones shouldn't have, all that shouldn't have happened because they say just go to another platform or create your own platform. That's the whole
Right.
point of the free market. We're a business. We can say whatever we want. We can.
Own your own website and
Right. The problem is that that's not really that true anymore because who's going to make a YouTube that's going to beat YouTube at this point? It's like they're so big that they just buy companies left, right, and center, and they're never going to be, like you said, they're monopolies. So then, the discussion changes a little bit, and I don't really know how I feel about it, but it's just interesting, like that we were talking about the rules of, like, who sets the rules, how do we come up with the moral rules and codes of action on the internet? what is the best way of bringing up people in a society so that there isn't such a contrast between how people communicate online and how people communicate in real life, and that there is, and just the comment of, you know, the decision to take down this Jones example is they were all acting on their own opinion of what the rules should be, and that wasn't from a collective decision, democratic choice, or you know, that just that phenomenon is pretty wild. Like, we used to think that everything on the internet is permanent and forever, but this is the first time where we've learned that you can be unpersoned on the internet. And whether or not I agree with the fact that he should have been or not, I don't, you know, whatever. But the point that I'm making is that it is possible to, and yeah, there's some videos people repost and all that stuff, but I'm talking about their ability to have themselves as an individual online, like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, like all of the sites, including the platforms that process payments, their own website servers, the people who hosted them, the website company itself, like all of the elements at play for having you access the internet, all of them acted at the same time, and all of them made the same decision to completely remove one person from the internet. And that's a new thing.
So it's a combination of the general consensus and decision making in the higher parts of the decision making hierarchy.
Yeah.
But like, that's a problem with democracy as well. If the majority of the people are uneducated and ignorant and biased,
yeah, that's
then
the thing.
You can't really let the majority decide. It wouldn't be a good strategy.
Right.
And also, I'm not making any point here. I'm not arguing against democracy at all.
Yeah.
Just giving that idea, putting it out there, but also the counter idea where if you're in the top of Facebook, Google, Amazon, Windows, etc., you got there for a reason. Like, people there don't just get picked randomly. You have a certain value system, principles, high standard, and high education mindset that got you there in the first place. So in certain situations, you as a regular Joe would be better off leaving that complex issue.
No. Those, like I said, you can't.
So you would rather leave.
Like I said, you can't attribute that people got to a position for a reason, and then therefore that means they're more capable, or they're more good, or they're more moral, or they're more able to make the correct choice. Like, in my mind, that's a logical fallacy. And like, I mean, most likely people who are at the head of companies that are massive, they're psychopaths. For the most part, dude, for the most part, like, I'm talking about billionaires. The reason they got there a lot of the time is because they're hyper productive. They didn't focus on family. They didn't care about family. It was about the business, and it was about getting ahead, and it was about being worried about competitors, and it was about getting people knowing about what competitors are doing. It was about pulling tricks to make more money. It was about enforcing your way on the world. Like, that is
but that's a pretty pessimistic approach.
It's pessimistic, but it's also a large truth, and I think it's a large truth.
But I agree. But are you saying majority of high-ranking business people are corrupt and ego-driven for more
I didn't say
greed.
corrupt. I didn't say corrupt. But
But
to get to that place, like you said, for a reason, it's not because they were charitable, and because I'm sure there's small circumstances where that's true, but it's not because they gave more to their employees and they didn't expand and reduce costs, and it's not because it's there's opposites to what I'm saying. Of course, there's situations where that's not true, but I would also argue that they're not as worth as much as they would be if they had implemented like aggressive, like insane, non-emotional.
that's the whole thing about, female traits not being successful in the workplace, not being representative of the productivity that Western civilization is known for.
Right.
And that, compassion doesn't do well in business. And that idea of the stronger wins, and you should want to win. And I'm not arguing for that. I'm saying it's not inherently evil. Like, I
Right.
believe business should be win-win, not advantage seeking.
Right. And I guess, and I could argue the other side possibly, but the point that I'm making is that I agree with you, but in general, the people who are at these insane heights of making money, they're not moral, benevolent, like saints. On the
Of
whole,
course.
on
Yeah,
the whole,
I'm not
like
saying that either. No, of course.
like there's a reason why Apple every year releases a phone that's slightly better than before, and everyone goes crazy. They have the potential to release flexible phone, wireless charging, 30 megapixel, virtual reality integration, EEG integrate, like more health monitoring. Like that's real. They could do that next year if they wanted to, but they don't, because they want
It's not that easy.
incremental change so that they can sell you a new product every year, and so they
Profit
don't
is first.
and they don't blow their load. They don't do, and then when they release that product, they go, oh man, we won't be able to release something for 10 years because we have to innovate all of this
Yeah,
new stuff.
of course.
And
But there's a reason why they have a business model, and there's many free things that you use about Google every day. You don't pay a cent for them. They're there. They're free for you to use, and
right,
great tools.
but they also want you to use that because they're taking your data and using it to build other things, and they're like,
Yeah.
it's I get that there is. I'm not saying it's all entirely evil, and I never said that, but I just think that it's a massive logical fallacy to think that people who have gotten to a place in the hierarchy are there because of moral and benevolent reasons, and that they are then more capable
Yeah,
of
but
determining what the rules should be in the whole culture at large. I mean, and if you're talking about
yeah,
politics,
agree.
a few years ago, I'm sure everyone's thought about this, but I just was shocked at the idea of like, yeah, we don't want a full out democracy because most people are uneducated, and it would be a mess if everyone had like. It's crazy. I mean, that's part of the thing that I thought about. The election that happened in this 2016 or whatever, Trump's election. Everyone was going wild, and it's like whatever system is in place, they voted for him to be there, and whatever you think about it, that was a democratic situation. I know there's like gerrymandering and states and populist votes and who was the popular vote and all that stuff, but it was working within the system that already exists. It's not like a new,
Mm.
it's not like a totally new thing
Yeah.
was used democratically. But I wonder what sort of social rules would be made if you let the internet decide what all those rules should be, and how different would that look if we let the people in Silicon Valley decide all of the rules from their political or whatever motivated personal standpoints or viewpoints. Yeah.
Yeah, but also we should look for competent and educated people to be in positions of high stakes decision making.
Right.
I think that's a good idea, and that kind of acts against democracy. And I'm not saying because also you can.
But I don't think people who should be in power want to be in power, and that's the problem. Like, if you you know if you're in a smaller tribe, let's say of 5 people, and one of them is Greg or Sheila, it's a female, and they just, they're quick to make the right decision. Everyone noticed that. Everyone talks about them like they're so great. Like they're the best person here. They always share stuff. Like they're great. Then they would all say, "Listen, Sheila or Greg or whatever their name is, we want you to lead this. You're like,
Yeah.
you're the best." How it works in our age is people going, "I think I should lead. I think I should be the best." And then they get involved in stuff and they try to raise up the ranks and they go like, "I'm going to be the best at this." And then it's like the initiation comes from the individual who wants to have the power. And that's inherently, right from the get-go, that's a problem, I think.
That's an ego problem, and people striving for attention and trying to position themselves as experts in any field, out of making educational videos on YouTube about the topic. So now I'm an expert in the thing, and I don't even have to show you my credentials. And I'm not saying credentials matter. I mean, mind matters, and maybe you're bright, and you want to be in a position of power, and you want to bluff yourself there, and if you say it and you shout it, it becomes like repeated lie many times. It could become a truth,
Right.
so that people are faking their way to actually being the thing they're representing without being, and like 19-year-old life coaches.
Right.
And I think what's authentic about people doing that is when they're just sharing the process and not trying to like teach or educate. You're just sharing your thoughts and sharing your process, and someone else is in the same process and finds that useful. And that's authentic. But mostly it's people like, "Hey, listen to me. I know the answer."
Yeah, and it's also people who they are in their echo chamber. They watch other videos of people who are like them, and then they make a new video that's similar to that other one, and they just say the same stuff, but they say it as if it's their ideas. Like, that's huge. And even the people who you think are authentic, like the people who are like, "It's just my experience. This is just what I think." But it's like exactly what everybody else is saying is their specific experience, and you're like...
Yeah, we're all repeating someone else's words as well. I'm sure we do that here, and doesn't mean you make it on purpose. It's just you consume certain ideas from certain places, and you could be repeating the exact same thing this guy said, but there's a value in internalizing it and then sharing it from your own words, even if most words are the same as where you got them. But I mean, I don't believe in referencing every single thing, for example.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. But there's also, but
there's also plagiarism and
Oh
like
man, the internet is, yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's true. But what about everything is a remix?
Yeah and no. Yes and no.
Yes and no. I agree. I
Um,
agree.
it's
There's a line,
it's
but
both
it's a
and.
shady line. It's a shady line.
Yeah.
There's this, yeah, the famous
Telephone
Picasso
communi
quote.
telephone communication is a remix on beep beep on Morse code. It's like, yeah, but no, it's like same it's no, it's not the same. Cars are like just a new horse. They're just transportation. No, it's not. It's not a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. I think there are new things that come throughout time. It's novelty. It's novelty. It's the Terence McKenna notion of novelty. We are being pulled
But that,
towards not extreme novelty.
but I don't think there's such a thing as 100% pure novelty. You can always trace sources in any
Yes, everything
thing
had a
that
path.
seems novel. Yeah.
Everything had a path. Everything was influenced by other things.
Mm.
Um, but it's the constant. It's like in the sun when it goes through supernova, it compresses into itself, and each phase creates different elements on the periodic table, and that the more intense ones are from the larger pressure created as it goes into itself, and that's
Mhm.
how all of the elements they happen from the star being dying, and
Yeah.
that's what's kind of as we move forward into the future. It's like the same process where there's these pressures that are everything from the past that are pressuring and crystallizing these novel things that came. It's just it's this many more. It's I don't know enough about chemistry to make the analogy, and I almost tried to, but
Uh-huh.
uh you know what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah, yeah. No, and I can relate that to idea innovation or like any
yeah.
sort of innovation. I'd like to think that how it works. I'm not saying I know how innovation works. And
Hmm.
I believe, for example, that anyone who tries to narrow down any definition of creativity is failing in some area of that definition. Like,
Right.
it's like talking about what enlightenment is.
What God
You
is.
can't, yeah.
That's the major
And
one.
creativity and innovation is one of those things you can't
Yeah.
really define. But I like to think it's like we talk about alchemy. Like you see, this exists, this exists, this exists. But how do you somehow, even if it's mentally or physically, chemically, kind of reach a new
Hmm.
understanding that
Yeah.
emerges from
M-
separate things that
Yeah.
you you find the
Emergent
link.
properties. You're looking for
Nice.
emergent properties.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pattern recognition
Yeah.
and
Okay.
abstract. It starts with abstract thought. Most of the time.
Novelty
You move to
novelty
the
is
detail.
emergent property. That's true. That's so true.
Yeah.
Novelty is entirely this and this makes something new. That has
That's how also technology develops.
that's
Like
how
new
human
technology
that's how
comes up
human
and then you
beings
can
develop.
do yeah.
You get two things together and you make a new thing.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
that the basis of one plus
Creation.
one? Math.
That's true. That's represented in 1 + 1 = 2. It's represented there. That's a universal. It's universal.
What about 1 + 1 = 1?
What about it?
That's the whole thing. You
No.
ever dived into that?
No, I don't want to really. What does that mean? What do you mean? That sounds super postmodern to me, then I don't like it.
It is. Maybe is. Yeah. I'm not
Because
sure
two is
about what
just
it is,
another
but
one. Two is the one of two.
Well, you are the one of your parents. So 1 plus 1 equals 1, right?
I have a brother.
Except if you have brothers. But every one of your brothers is that 1 plus 1 equals 1. So that's the thing. The whole 1 plus, we leave it for another conversation, but the 1 plus 1 equals 1, that's the thing.
I don't like it. I'll look into it, but it rubs me the wrong way.
It's paradoxical. It's paradoxical. That's why you don't like it, because there's so many ways to crack the code.
I forget what the word is, but there's a word that basically it says a simplistic statement that claims to be profound but isn't. There's a word for that.
It depends. There's a word for that. There's also a word for new artists who think that their work is one of the greatest things. Like everyone should know my work, and there's a word for that.
If I could think of that word, then I would. You could also just call it Deepak Chopraing. Say that 1 plus 1 that 1 plus 1 equals 1 to me feels like Deepak Chopraing. It's like you're just saying a thing, and it could be true if you really. No,
it's mainly ideological. Like you can make it seem that way if you're rational. From that certain perspective, you play with the reality of the thing. But it's also an idea.
A dog is a horse, because like, what's a dog and what's a horse?
It's conceptual and ideological because it's representing an idea that's not rational, and like 1 plus 1 equals 1 is that very basic representation of not rationalism, that where you can say, everything is 1, really.
1 plus 1 equals 1 is the problem with our society right now.
I don't think so. Maybe people should believe that 1 plus 1 could equal 1, because then we could have more unity. We could have less separate diversity and more unifying diversity. Because 1 plus 1, that's diversity.
Dissolving boundaries is good. Dissolving boundaries is good. But dissolving all boundaries... Yeah, I feel you. But,
and then that could equal oneness.
Yeah, I feel you. But we need to have an agreed upon notion of what boundaries are. Like what you're talking about is the dissolution of boundaries. 1 plus 1 equals 1 is a dissolution of boundaries.
But it doesn't mean 1 plus 1 doesn't exist. It doesn't mean everything is reduced to oneness and everything is the same and we're all equal. That's not what it means. It just means there's a higher, not higher because that infers superiority or the higher lower thing, but it's more of a different perspective, that it's not all separate.
I agree. Yeah. I think that that's a beautiful notion, but I think there's another way.
Which makes more sense now than 5 minutes ago, where 1 plus 1 equals 1. It's completely irrational and you can laugh at it.
Right.
There's a different.
But here's my. I think I would say my problem with it is saying 1 plus 1 equals 1 makes 1 plus 1 equals 2 seem equal to the 1 plus 1 equals 1. Plus, you're talking about math. Like, you're in the domain of math.
Yeah, of course.
And in the domain of math, you're making a nonsensical statement. And I think that it should be that 1 plus 1 equals 1 should be made within a framework that doesn't infringe on the 1 plus 1 equals 2.
No, it's supposed to infringe on it.
It's don't infringe on that.
Talked about this.
No.
Yes, because then you're a materialist, rationalist, who thinks that math and rationality are the great final truth determining tool.
But here's the thing. Objective reality exists.
It exists.
Objective reality exists. 1 plus 1 equals 2 is real.
It's real. Yes.
And that is tied to objective facts about the world. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that possibly it doesn't mean we can garner all of our what should be done. Therefore, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that that answer can come from those things. All it means is that is a truth. And 1 + 1 = 1, in my mind, that has philosophical, interesting things about it, and there's different ways of approaching it. I think it has value. But it doesn't equal the same. It isn't as true as 1 + 1 = 2. It isn't.
It isn't true in the same domain.
In
and
the same domain,
you shouldn't put this idea in the same domain.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is,
you can represent it in the same domain. It doesn't equal the. It doesn't. It's not as true. It's not as true.
No, and we're in the same page here.
Okay, good.
But what I'm saying is, the fact that 1 + 1 is a limit dissolution concept that you're placing in a rational situation or framework, that paradox holds the lesson.
I get you, but here's the problem. This is the interpretation problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you can justify any interpretation, then there's nothing. Then there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
we
true.
could also have a conversation where 1 + 1 = 7. I know it doesn't make sense right now. I know it doesn't make sense right now. We could make that. We can make that make sense.
The conceptual approach. It's yeah. No, I'm with you. Of course.
Yeah.
I'm with you. But then, if I'm 100% with you there, then I don't see much value in the intrinsic wisdom of spiritual traditions or religious tradition and religious story and myth, and because there is rational value that can be selected from that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take the
Extracted.
Thanks. You can extract from the 1 + 1 = 1 all the ideological approach to everything when you're saying, hey, it's all a mental construct, right?
Right.
I'm not for that. But there's maybe not rational, but rationally helpful, rationally valuable ideas that 1 + 1 = 1 holds.
Right.
And they're equal to those ideas that ancient tradition holds that are not rational or scientific.
Right. But my point is, if you get an accountant, you're going to make sure he thinks 1 + 1 = 2. Otherwise, you're firing that guy.
Yeah, please fire the 1 + 1 = 1 accountant.
You would never accept that. You would never accept that in real life, other than in a philosophical discussion where you're animating or conceptualizing the idea in using numbers.
And if you're a scientist,
of that, you'd never.
If you're a scientist and if you believe in 1 + 1 = 1, you shouldn't be a scientist.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I would say that. Dude, didn't you know that math was created from the Western viewpoint that is used to oppress other groups, and that actually math is really old, but it's always been a continuum of more privileged people from exercising their control by creating the world using ones and zeros, and then just using math as a language. Didn't you know that? You can't even use math.
Documentary. I want to see that documentary. Is it like super?
No, that's the postmodern argument. But
so math isn't inherently discriminatory.
That's
what you're saying?
That's what the argument would be, coming from a postmodern lens.
Mm-hmm.
But here's
so
the thing.
Whole financial system shouldn't even exist.
Here's the thing. No, the financial system is patriarchal and dominant based, and it's
I hope we don't go there.
Here's the thing. I would say that um, exploring metaphysical concepts that contradict objective truth should be questioned. But that doesn't, but by questioning them, that is also not claiming that therefore it's wrong or untrue or incorrect, because we know the limitations of science.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that rationalism, because you basically were like, hold on, you're gonna go down purely scientific rationalism, and we've talked about this, and so this is me responding to that.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I think scientific reductionist materialism, pure rationalism, all that stuff, the Enlightenment view, that is the best toolkit and the best thing we have for bouncing ideas off of. And if you have a concept and you can bounce it off of that worldview and it still holds some water, then that's super interesting. And then that's space that can be explored and validated in some way. So if you're talking about 1 + 1 = 1, bounce it off the scientific reductionist materials worldview and say, well, hang on, 1 + 1 = 2, and it's math, and here's all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can approach it with that as a tool and not as the end all be all. But
also, you get 1 + 1 = 2, and then you add 8, you still end up in 1. It may be a different
You're talking about 10?
Of 1. Yeah, it's a different level of 1, but
that's still a whole other thing.
It's still unity.
Why did we stop at 9?
That's the whole thing. I remember that.
Yeah, and I never.
I don't know. I still don't know why did we stop at 9.
Watch.
I have no idea.
I'm gonna put this right on my third eye.
Should we take a small break, or how long?
Do you see how I'm?
Wow, I see that. I'm not sure. Are you inside the limits of our internet space?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just go like this and you just talk like here for 10 minutes. And then
I'm sorry. I think I'm feeling like maybe wrapping it up. You down to wrap it up?
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's your conclusion? Oh. Wait. Just count down from 5.
5.
4. 3.
3.
2.
2.
1.
1.
And
3.
We should be back right about now. Right about now.
Dude, that was right on.
Hey, that was fast.
That was right on.
I'm getting better
5, 4,
at
3,
this.
2, 1, on. The internet's crazy. The internet's crazy. The way that we communicate online, we should consider on a cultural basis and figure out how to translate some of our cultural norms that are adopted in our civil society in real life, and figure out a way to somehow let that translate and not make a habit out of the way that we communicate online. And we don't totally know how to do that.
And we don't need moderators if we learn how to moderate ourselves.
Right, and people at the top are there for a reason, but that reason isn't always necessarily for moral reasons.
But it's not inherently evil as well.
It's not inherently evil as well.
Power-driven. Like
Correct.
Some people are there because they earned it. And,
right.
And you know, it's
I also want to... Sorry, I cut you off. I also want to throw out the idea of maybe there's just too many people, and like our entire methods of like monitoring and just the whole thing is too big.
Yeah.
And that, you know, electing
someone... We're too big for ourselves. We can't handle ourselves.
Taking like democracy and stuff and putting it on an island of 10 people, it becomes so clear and great and it works. But when you talk about, and maybe with the internet, with the whole world is in one place,
democracy is so new also.
It's new.
And education hasn't catch up to the degree that democracy would need education to be in.
Democracy never seen that internet either.
True.
We also talked about as above, so below concepts that can be applied in different areas, and that I love that stuff. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And lastly, we touched on, what are we talking about numbers for? 1 + 1 = 1.
Well, because we found that as a very basic analogy for you're either 100% rationality, or you believe that subjective experience and maybe concepts that are not rational, they have inherent value sometimes. But it's like
this is new. I feel this is new. That's good though.
Is this new? Well, I think we've talked about this.
Okay. I just find it funny. I'm starting to learn intonations in your speech where I know that the idea you're having is of a certain nature. You know what I mean? Like, I know that what you say is going to be like this, just formulated in my mind. Like the way you're saying it, I can see that it just happened, as opposed to, and that's what I love about having these conversations, is those moments.
So it's a good thing that's new.
Yeah.
No, but
it's probably new and old, but it just happened.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe the word formulation is new, but what's not new is the fact that we've been trying to make sense of why 100% rationality is not always the way to go. And we're also trying to revivify, which is a word that I love.
I love revivify.
You revivify archaic knowledge and whatever wisdom is. And the fact that we haven't had science forever, science is, you could argue it's a new tool, and we've sort of been improving our behavior for throughout history, right? And you can attribute some of that to religion, tradition, stories, mythology, word-to-word experience, which most of the time it's just subjectivity. But it can carry important information that shouldn't be discarded. And whenever you say, hey, 100% rationality is the way to go, you're definitely discarding that.
Right.
So we may come up with new interpretations for that and new ways to counter-argue that same thing, because neither of us are trying to make a case for any opposite.
Yeah, well, I think...
just...
Yeah, I mean, I love standing with 1 or 2 feet on 1 + 1 = 2, and then looking around and seeing if I can get anything else. But I'm going to keep at least a foot on the 1 + 1 = 2, and I think we should always do that, because it's the best tool that we've had for navigating in the world.
It should be like both feet on 1 + 1 = 2,
but the arms,
and then allowing to maybe half step.
Dance around, but make sure that you're dancing around on the platform that is
you're anchored
1 + 1 = 2. Yeah, but you can look around.
Yeah,
you can smell.
You should,
can taste.
And maybe you should look around. Maybe it's even like a responsibility to not be so.
Yeah, it's like, hey, why are you just looking one place? Look around.
Right. So,
but always keep your eye like that. Always keep one eye down, like looking down at 1 + 1 = 2 with the feet, to make sure you don't step off the mat.
Right. Like, for example, I love the fact that the Dalai Lama said that if science proves that any Buddhist belief is inherently wrong, then they should stop believing that. And the fact that the leader of the religion said that publicly, that's like a great high five, like a great cultural high five to science, right? Like, we can all cheer for that.
I'm pretty sure the popes did that too, and I think that's also happened where there's like,
Recently, it's true.
yeah,
And they're also being more, well, I don't want
yeah, we don't need to
to
go into any of these
diverge, but
places.
you could also make the case like whenever someone's too rooted in scientific truth, that they're missing out on
Stuff.
information, valuable information,
Yeah.
whatever that may be. Mm.
I prefer
Do you like
stuff.
that?
Yeah, I like that. It's better.
Stuff.
It's way
They're
better.
missing out on
No, no,
stuff.
no. I was
Because,
joking.
yeah.
It's way better than stuff. Stuff is the worst. Stuff is so nondescript. Yeah, I agree. And that's, we talk about that. I mean, for me, I'm most interested in that. That's why I read about alchemy. I love reading about magic and historic, philosophical approaches
Mysticism.
from the past and Hermetic philosophy and looking at all these things because I like seeing
just not
what's
discarding
there
them.
and not discarding, and it's fascinating and interesting and
It's
that's
also fun.
it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. I like it. You like it. And we hope you out there like it.
It's also
as well.
dangerous too because, and I guess that's the best case for the scientific approach is that most of this non-scientific belief systems, they're infected in many ways. So whenever you're trying to find what's valuable and what's
Right.
not valuable, that's tricky. That's why I like stuff way
There's
more than
always
valuable info.
There's always
Because
a
it's
snake in the
stuff.
garden. That's
Yeah.
what, that's what Jordan Peterson would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's be aware of that as well.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that
Snake
these
detectors.
conversations maybe, hopefully, make us more conscious of different things you can be aware, but then there's a snake, but then there's also a gem in there.
Yeah.
So beware of the snake, but find
Yeah.
the gem.
Become a miner with the axe pick. Become a miner looking for the gem, but also have your snake detector. Have your snake
Yeah.
detector always on.
Always
Beep.
on. Yeah.
Beep. Beep 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 beep.
Run away, run away.
Went away, but then there's always the gem by the snakes. That's also true.
But then
the
also
the dragon always has the treasure. It's always
Yeah.
by the snake.
And
So-
the void is there as well.
So the snake
void.
detector is also a gold detector, because the gold is
Works
usually
both
close
ways.
to the
Yes, I love that.
close. And the
Yes.
void is also near. What's the void?
The void is where the snake likes to be.
Oh yeah, that's where the snake came from.
It dwells in the
Yeah.
void.
The
Also the
underwater,
void.
unknown space, dark forest. Yeah.
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 Where you rescue.
Yeah.
So there lies the
There
gem.
lies the
the
gem.
lesson.
And therein lies
So
the gem.
that's like saying
You heard it here
the
first.
1 + 1 = 1 paradox holds
It's got a gem.
a very basic
Yeah.
gem understanding that can really help you overcome fear, because
Yeah.
separation is always mostly based on fear and
Yeah.
and
True.
you know,
and there's a lot that
living in separation is not always a good thing. Although separation
The dissolution
gives
of
room to
boundaries is
science
good.
and rationality. Yeah.
the dissolution of boundaries is good, but there's also snakes all over that gem.
All over that.
All
yes.
over the
All
gem.
over that.
Yeah.
So if you want to go there, you should should have a certain level of snake controlling skill.
Yeah.
Not only
Snake.
detecting, but
Yeah.
what if the snake here's a snake,
Yeah.
and then if the snake feels you fear,
Snake whisper.
snake may bite
Yeah.
if it smells fear. But what
Yeah.
if you're in a snake realm, and maybe
Yeah.
you're fine with a snake going around and
Yeah.
checking you out, because you're also checking out the snake. Because the
Yeah.
snake also holds something majestic,
Yep.
you know, something
Yep.
super sacred and godlike
Yeah. You're saying,
and
hey,
primordial.
saying, hey,
Hey,
I'm
and if it's a
here.
king cobra, if it's a
Yeah.
king cobra and it's like looking at you,
Yeah.
and if you look at the snake in the eyes and you don't feel fear, you've made it.
Yeah.
You're there. You've gone through the process
So
mostly.
are you saying that the snake will tempt you if you're scared of it?
Sure, it'll know.
So
It'll know.
the snake of 1 plus 1 equals 1 can be adopting that whole thing fully. There's no 1 plus 1 equals 2. It's all the same. There's no, that's letting the snake convince you. And, or maybe it's you not willing to look at the snake, truly look at the snake, and to see what it is all about. I'm losing the I'm trying
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Well,
combine the
most people are
metaphor.
afraid of snakes
Yeah, they're
because
scary.
they're scary and they're sketchy. Like you don't know, maybe
Yeah.
you just all of a
Yeah, yeah,
sudden
yeah,
you can't really look at the snake. It's hard to
yeah.
look at the snake and not fear.
Yeah.
But if you're able to, I'm not saying I'm able to, I'm not saying it's a thing that can be easily achieved.
Yeah.
But if you're able to look at the snake without separation, understanding that you're the snake, there's nothing to fear.
Mm-hmm. You're saying you're saying there's a truth here that's relevant to me, but the truth
I'm comparing, let
also
me give you
has
an
danger.
example. I was amazed, no, not amazed, but really kept me thinking for a while at the end of the London conversation between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris. They have about 10 minutes more to go, and the moderator asks them to talk about what they don't tolerate, like what they hate, what they don't tolerate at all. And Harris says, or what I got out of what he said is that he doesn't tolerate or really hates unnecessary suffering and his own capacity for unnecessary suffering, and he catching himself in unnecessary suffering and that whole thing. And then I love that, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Peterson said, which is something around I hate the fact that I don't understand how someone could be an Auschwitz general and live in happiness and, you know, manifest that level of evilness and still be able to feel happy about himself. And he mentioned that he's been struggling with that for many years, like trying to put himself in the shoes of a happy Auschwitz general.
That's his big thing, yeah.
And yeah, that's his huge thing. And that's something that's really hard for me to understand. And like that, going back to the comment reading exercise where you're like, oh, how can this person say that?
Mm-hmm.
And taking that to a high extreme.
Right,
and
right.
and I think that's the snake, being able to look at the snake without separation, without saying that evil in you, I don't have that, and I'm afraid that I'll get that's contagious. Something around that has a very deep idea that's not rational at all, but holds so much value.
Yeah,
And it's
why exactly?
Jungian and intellectual and psychological, but
Yeah, and why exactly do people who probably in general in life would act rationally, why when they go online do they go insane?
because
Why?
they are, because they're reflecting,
Yeah,
that
no, I agree.
sort of
I agree.
anonymous situation helps them be freer.
Yeah, that's part of it. There's probably a lot of factors, but that's what we're still
Sure.
trying to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, listen, man. There's a lot. There's a lot. That was a lot to get through. It was great. And
Yeah. We were
Thanks.
gonna round up and then we just
Kept
went
going.
for maybe another 10, 15.
No, but that's great.
It's good.
If you're out surfing and another set comes in, ride the wave. You know what I mean? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We're just
Yeah.
two surfers here hanging out. It's like,
Hey. Yeah. We're getting cold. The water's way the
Yeah.
what?
It's getting cold in the water here.
The tide is
Yeah.
going down.
Yeah. I feel you, my brother. Surf's not up anymore.
Uh,
Surf's down. And that was
No
great.
more wax in the
The wax on the board.
board. No more wax. for
That
the
never
board.
happens.
Um,
Every 10 minutes, I'm going in. My wax is off. All
Well,
right.
you can slip. You can sleep easier.
Uh,
So you could
do you
have
want
a
to keep
bad
going on the
experience.
surf analogy?
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry, taking it too long.
Thanks, my friend.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
that was great. And look forward to the next one.
All right.
Peace.
Thanks. Peace. And